Okay, now we're going to look at simplifying an expression. Remember, an expression is just something that doesn't have two things equal to each other. That's an equation. The idea behind simplifying an expression is really, for us, at least right now, is to combine like terms. You have to combine like terms whenever it is possible. So let's take a look at the very first problem, something similar we just completed. Here is an expression. We don't have two things equal to one another. And that's important to recognize. The way you simplify is you combine like terms. So once again, the 4 and the 7x, that can be combined into 11x. The minus 5 and the minus 11, that can be combined into minus 16. We did this problem just a little while ago. Now, if you have parentheses, the order of operations comes into play. You need to remove those parentheses by applying the distributive property. In other words, when you have an expression, your first step is going to be to get rid of your parentheses. You make sure you take the number on the outside and distribute it across everything on the inside, each term on the inside. So, stop the video, work the problems, here we go. 3 needs to be distributed. When you distribute, you are multiplying, right? So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. So this is equal to 3x minus 6, right? Notice how 3 got multiplied to the coefficients. The next one, negative 2. We're going to distribute negative 2 across each term. Negative 2 times 3, minus 6. X. Negative 2 times negative 4. 2 negatives make a positive. 2 times 4 is 8. So this one simplifies to minus 6x plus 8. For C, on the outside here we have a minus sign. That minus sign gets distributed not just to the minus 3, but it also gets distributed across to the 5. Be careful, it gets distributed to everything inside of the parentheses. So a negative and a negative makes a positive 3, x. A negative and a positive is a negative 5. The D, again, right here we have a negative 2 that we're going to be distributing. We have to take care of parentheses first. That's what the order of operations tells us. Right now, I'm not working with 3. Since I'm not working with the 3, I'm going to just bring it down. Now, I'm going to bring the minus 2 into the picture. Minus 2 times a positive 1 is negative 2. X. Negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. You always combine like terms. So, the 3 and the 10 are going to combine to a minus 7. So I have minus 2x minus 7. So again, what did I do? Since I wasn't working with the 3, I made sure that I brought it down. The minus 2 is what's going to be distributed. Remember, I always associate the sign with the number to the right. So that's going inside the parentheses. It affects the x and the 5. You always combine your like terms. E, minus 4x. I'm not working with that right now because I have parentheses. A minus goes across and goes across here. So that's a minus 2x minus 5. Combine these two terms because they're like. Minus 4 minus 2 is minus 6x minus 5. And so this expression here is the same thing as minus 6x minus 5. Now I'm going to bring this one up here since I didn't make room for it. This one I have 2 sets of parentheses. Work with them separately. The first one I'm going to distribute the 3 across. For the second one I'm going to distribute the minus 2 across. 3 times minus 2 is a negative 6x. 3 times 5 is 15. Associate the sign with the number to the right. Minus 2 times a 4 is a minus 8x. Minus 2 times 7 is minus 14. Minus 6 minus 8 is minus 14x. 15 minus 14 is 1. I get minus 4x plus 1. Remember, the number outside the parentheses gets multiplied to all terms on the inside. Okay? Now we're going to get into actually solving an equation. We're going to have two properties we're going to talk about here. Okay? There are two things we can do when we have an equation. You can't do these things when you don't have an equation. Remember, what do you do with an expression? You get rid of the parentheses, you combine your like terms. That's it. You're not solving for x. You can't find what x is equal to. In other words, none of these problems up here, all these things here, these things were expressions. None of these we said x is equal to 4, x is equal to 5. Nothing like that. We just simplified it. We made it smaller. That's what we essentially did. We combined the like terms. Alright, so here's how we solve equations. The first thing I'm going to walk you through is how we can move things around. Our first property. We can multiply or divide both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number. The resulting equation will have the same solutions as the original. What this is really saying is that we can move the coefficient by moving it to the other side by multiplying by its reciprocal. That is, this property here is really telling us how to move a coefficient. We move it by taking it to the other side and converting it to its reciprocal. What we like to say is we flip it. Remember, the reciprocal keeps the sign of the original number. So when we move the coefficient, the sign is going to go along with it. Here we go. Here we have an equation. Here's the coefficient. When we move 3 to the other side, we're multiplying by 3. So in effect, we are dividing by 3. That's really kind of what we're doing here. That's the reciprocal, 1/3. For b, here's the coefficient. When we move it to the other side, we get 9 over minus 2. Notice we brought the sign with it. So these are the actual solutions to these equations. That's what's actually happened here. Now here's a fraction. We're not working with fractions initially, but again, if it's later on in the semester, we are working with them. All right, so the coefficient is 2/3. I'll just show you when I bring it to the other side. Since I'm dividing by 3, I'm multiplying by 3. Since I'm multiplying by 2, I'm dividing by 2. In other words, 15 over 2. So this is simply to show you that you move a coefficient to the other side by multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay? Again, most of your problems that you're going to be working with are whole numbers right now. If you're this is your first round associated with equations and you haven't reached fractions yet. Here's another one. Minus 2/3 x equal to 1. Again, here's the coefficient. I'll move it to the other side by flipping it and changing the sign. So this is going to be minus 3 over 2. 3 went to the top, 2 went to the bottom, and I kept the sign. Notice that? Because I was multiplying by 3 actually, so I'll bring it to the other side. I was dividing by 3. So I went to the other side multiplying by 3. I was multiplying by 2, went to the other side dividing by 2. Our next property is, it tells us how we can move a term. We move terms to the other side of an equation by simply changing their sign. The property describes officially or formally what happens, that you can add or subtract things from both sides of an equation without affecting the equation. What this is really telling us, you move terms by changing their sign. So here's a couple of examples. With this problem here, minus 9 is a term. So if I move it to the other side, I simply change the sign. Notice I did not change the sign on the 5 because I didn't move it. Well, x is equal to 9 plus 5, so this one here actually has a solution of x equal to 14. 14 minus 5 is 5. 14 minus 9 is 5. Here's a coefficient. If I want to move it to the other side, all I have to do is change the sign. I mean, not a coefficient, I'm sorry. A term. Here's a term. It is a coefficient set, but let's just say it's a term. We're adding it, one to the other side, subtracting it. That's really what's going on. When you move a term, or when you move something, you really are moving it to the other side by utilizing the opposite operation, the opposite operation. That's really what's going on. So now we have two things we can do to an equation. Okay? We can move a term by changing the sign. We can move a coefficient by moving it and using its reciprocal. Now, the idea behind solving an equation is we want to get the x by itself. We want to isolate the x variable in these problems so we can say x is equal to something. So, watch what I'm going to do here. What I'm going to do here is it's going to be a step-by-step process. My first step is I'm going to get the x terms to the left-hand side, and if it doesn't have an x, I'm going to move it to the right-hand side. I want to combine my x terms into a single term. So, first objective is I'm going to look at this problem here, and if it doesn't have an x, I want it over here. If it has an x, I want it over here. So when I look at this problem here, the 2x is on the proper side. That's all I have. I'm going to put my equal sign. Now I look through again. That's okay. The minus 9 doesn't have an x. How do I move a term? Change the sign. The 5 is okay. So I have 2x is equal to 14. Now I have a coefficient I would like to move. It's a 2. Since I'm multiplying by 2, I can bring it to the other side dividing by 2. X is equal to 7. That's the solution to the problem. The next one, step 1, I would like to get my x terms on the left-hand side. 3x minus 2x. Notice the minus 3x didn't change signs, but the thing is I wanted the 2x on the other side, so I changed the sign. On the right-hand side, I want the numbers without an x. The 4's got to move. Change the sign. The minus 2 is okay. I'll leave it alone. We combine like terms. See? Now I'm ready to move a coefficient. Since I'm multiplying by a minus 5, I will divide by minus 5. And the answer is 6 over 5. Next one. Move the x terms to the left-hand side. Notice, again, I'll look through for the x terms. If I moved it to the left side, I changed the sign. If I didn't move it, I left it alone. On the right-hand side, I want the numbers that have no x. Positive 3 changes to minus 3. 5 and 3 is 8x. Minus 3 plus 2 is minus 2. I have a coefficient. I move a coefficient by moving it to the other side. Since I'm multiplying, I divide. Now if there are parentheses, we need to take care of parentheses first. So remember, parentheses are always taken care of first, order of operations. So again, the whole idea is to get the x on the left, non-x's on the right. So first step, distribute. 2x minus 18 is equal to 5, right? I'm distributing the 2, right? Now, I want the x's on the left-hand side. If it doesn't have the x, I want it on the right-hand side. If I moved it, I changed the sign. If I didn't move it, I left it alone. 2x is equal to 23. Now I'm ready to move the coefficient. I move the coefficient, I'm multiplying by 2. Move it to the other side, dividing by 2. B. Again, stop the video, try working the problems. First step, get rid of the parentheses, right? Notice how I'm distributing the 2 across everything on the inside. Move the x terms to the left-hand side. Move the non-x terms to the right-hand side. So let's stop it and watch what we're doing here. If I moved it, I changed the sign. If I didn't move it, it kept the sign. The -3 stayed, the 4 moved, the 2 moved, the -2 stayed. -3 minus 2 is -5x. Combine like terms. -4 minus 2 is -6. Now I'm ready to move the coefficient. I'm multiplying by -5. I'm going to divide by -5. Finally, C. Again, take care of those parentheses. I'm distributing a -1 minus x plus 1. Negative x. Minus and a minus is positive. I don't touch the 5. It's not in the parentheses. I don't distribute across stuff outside of the parentheses, okay? Only what's on the inside. I can simplify this a bit. Right? Now I'm going to rearrange my terms. I'm going to bring the x's to the same side. Notice what's happening with the signs. I'm going to bring to the 3 to the right-hand side. Notice the change in signs. So again, look at the 2 things whose signs changed because they got moved. 5 and 1 is 6x. -3 minus 4 is a -7. Now I'm ready to move the coefficient. I'm multiplying by it, so I divide by it. And there you go. So again, I'm going to stop this video. And in the last video, we are going to have a general discussion of how we solve a linear equation overall. Okay?